Let's move on to our fifth and final main topic today. And our fifth and final main topic today gets submitted to us by Steve Calderon, who writes, Disney set 5 new dates for Marvel movies, 1 in 2022 and 4 in 2023. We know in 2022, Black Panther 2 is coming on May 6th, along with Ant-Man 3 on one of the 3 remaining dates that same year. What are your prediction on which movies we'll likely see on those dates? All right, thanks a lot for the question, man. And yes, so Marvel now has 8 films, 8 dates, I should say, set for 2022 and 2023. 4 in 2022 and 4 in 2023, which is insane. 4 films. I mean, to me, it's still radically insane on top of all the stuff they're doing on Disney Plus. It is absolutely crazy. So now with the new dates announced, here's what we're looking at as far as Marvel's release dates. We have got February 18th. Now, of course, none of this is counting the stuff coming up in 2020 and 2021. But we've got February 18th, 2022. We got July 29th, May 6th, which we already know is Black Panther 2. So that one is set. And then, of course, we've got October 7th. As we move into 2023, again, we've got a February date. We got May 5th. We got July 28th. And we've got November 3rd. So these are the dates that we have right now. So we've got 8 dates for those years. When you sit back and start to think about what will those movies be, there's a couple of ones that are kind of no-brainers. Here's the ones that I think are well, maybe not necessarily. A couple of them aren't no-brainers. A couple of them are. Here's the way I see it right now, okay? Black Panther 2 is obvious. That's a lock. It's already officially announced. I think you have to know Captain Marvel 2 is going to be one of those. It's a billion-dollar film, and Kevin Feige has already said that Captain Marvel is going to be one of the key figures moving forward for the MCU as a whole. So I think that's a no-brainer that Captain Marvel 2 will be there. It is also a no-brainer that Doctor Strange 2 will be there because they already announced 6 months ago that they rehired, why am I forgetting the director's name?
Ryan Coogler?
No, for Doctor Strange 2.
Scott Derrickson.
Derrickson, thank you so much. They've already re-brought him on to do it, so we know that that's coming. And they didn't bring him on to do it for a movie that wasn't coming out in 6 years, so it's going to be one of them. They've also recently announced that they've brought back the director for Ant-Man, so we've got Ant-Man 3 is coming. We also already know that they brought back James Gunn, so we have Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is going to be one of them. They announced at Comic-Con that they were going to be doing a Blade movie, and again, I don't think they're announcing that movie. That's not coming out for 5 years, so I believe Blade is going to be one of those films. Also, I believe Avengers 5 will be one of those films. By the time we get into late 2023, if we get into late 2023, it'll be 4.5 years since the previous Avengers movie. I do believe they're then going to have an Avengers 5. So I believe that one of those is going to be a 5. Now, that leaves one mystery spot. There's a couple of options here. Number one, I'll say this. I do think it will be a new character. Because as you look down this list, Black Panther we've already got, Captain Marvel we've already got, Doctor Strange we've already got, Ant-Man we've already got, Guardians, Blade's a new one, Avengers is an Avengers thing. So out of all 8, right now we only see one new character getting a feature. So I do believe it's going to be a new one. I don't think it'll be Fantastic Four though. And that seems to be the Vegas odds right now is on Fantastic Four. A lot of people betting that it's going to be Fantastic Four. I still take what Kevin Feige said about he already had his 5-year plan before the Fox thing came up. So I'm going to lean on that and say, look, it's very possible that it could be a Fantastic Four. I'm going to lean away from that, though. And I also don't think it's going to be one of the Netflix characters. I don't think they're going to do, say, Moon Knight to come out in 2021 or something and then have a feature film of him just 2 years later.
No.
So I think it's going to be somebody new on top of that. I got a couple of theories, but Rob, before I get into my couple of theories about what could be that mystery spot, how do you see this one particular list? What do you think is going to come up on it or not come up on it for that matter? And how do you see this whole thing kind of working out?
Well, I'm pretty boring, but I have to say that it has to be a new character because they've got to introduce more new characters to move forward to keep the universe fresh. But I do think I'm going with the odds-on favorite, John. I think it's going to be Fantastic Four, and I think Peyton Reed's going to direct it. And I think it's going to be tied in to Ant-Man 3. I think it's going to have something to do with the quantum realm. I think they'll probably. I think even they might even Fantastic Four is going to be tied even more closely to Ant-Man 3 than normal. And I think that's why they just announced Ant-Man 3 and it hadn't been announced before. I think they have a plan. I think they're both tied together. And I think Peyton Reed's going to direct Fantastic Four as well.
Okay.
That's what I think.
Let me, I like the theory of Peyton Reed directing a Fantastic Four, but let me throw this in there. Let me throw a little bit of a wrench in the works.
Yeah.
You and I both know that a director will spend years working on a film. If Ant-Man 3 comes out in 2022, which, by the way, we don't know it'll be 2022. It might be 2023. But let's say 2022 for argument's sake. If Ant-Man 3 comes out in 2022, can Peyton Reed actually be the director of another film that comes out just 1 year later, understanding that these directors will spend like 3+ years working on film? Can they do that?
I think that they're going to start having to. If they're really going to make 4 movies a year, I think they saw with Endgame and Infinity War, they did those like the Lord of the Rings movies. They were making those at the same time. You know, they
did them concurrently.
They did them, but that's what I mean. I think that they're going to do that concurrently, and I think you're going to see more and more of that in the MCU because it amortizes costs across 2 films, and I think it's just easier. I mean, sure, it's grueling on a crew, but they've got these things down. They've got this production team in place. They really know how to make these movies now. They've got a decade of these films behind them, and I think they're going to streamline production, and I think they're going to save a lot of money by doing that, and if they find, like they're talking about how WandaVision is going to lead right into Multiverse of Madness and
right.
things like that. I think you're going to see a lot more synergy in the making of these movies than we have in the past. So it's not going to be, and I think Ant-Man 3, that's why this is my part, it feeds into my theory that Ant-Man 3 and Fantastic Four are both going to be directed by Peyton Reed and they're probably going to be made concurrently. All right. That's what I would think.
I'm going to lean away from that. I think it's a little too tight of a turnaround because one's not a direct sequel to another, but I do love the idea of Peyton Reed directing, and I do love the idea of maybe introducing the notion of Fantastic Four and Ant-Man. I am still going to lean towards, though, that Kevin Feige said, you know, we got our 5-year plan, and I think Fantastic Four is a big thing. But I will say this. It's pure speculation, no insider information here whatsoever, okay, guys? I think the introduction of the Fantastic Four is a big major shift for the MCU. And I don't think Kevin Feige is going to do that inside of that 5-year window he said he had. But I do believe what you could do without affecting anything else very much, like if Kevin Feige had his 5-year plan, I believe there's a character you could do a standalone movie with that maybe wasn't part of your plan initially, but wouldn't necessarily have an effect on everything else going on in the MCU. And that's Wolverine. I think Kevin Feige could sneak in there as our 8th movie in 2022 and 2023 as a standalone Wolverine film, introducing us to the brand new Wolverine, and it could be done in such a way that is almost essentially standalone, like it doesn't have to affect anything else around it, but then can be tied in later. You know what I mean? So that would, theoretically speaking, that would keep Kevin Feige's plan in place. You could bring in whatever director. There's no complications with it bumping up against production of another film. And Wolverine, let's face it, as much as it's come to kind of annoy people at some point, let's face it, Wolverine is the crown jewel character of the X-Men corner of the MCU. He really is. And I don't think you introduce a new Wolverine in a larger film. I don't think because we are so used to, look, Hugh Jackman's Wolverine.
Right.
And I don't know if you introduce us to a new Wolverine in some team movie at some point. I think you introduce us to a new Wolverine in his own standalone film. So I'm going to go completely without any basis.
Wow.
I'm going to go out on a limb and guess it's going to be a Wolverine film. And for the reasons I stated. But listen, guys, question is...
That's compelling, man.
Well, you make a really good argument, too, especially with the
interested.
Peyton Reed stuff. So, guys, what do you think? I mean, I honestly think that all those other ones that we mentioned, I think these are pretty much locks, other than Avengers 5. Avengers 5, I think, is likely, but I wouldn't say it's a lock. But Captain Marvel, Doctor Strange, Ant-Man, Guardians, Blade, Avengers. These are, other than Avengers, I think these are all locks. But what do you think? Rob makes a really, really good case for an Ant-Man 3 that is tied into a Fantastic Four, directed by Peyton Reed. Do you believe that? Maybe you like my case about the idea of a Wolverine character, standalone movie, not so connected to everything else. Or maybe you've got another theory outside of all of that. What do you guys think is going to be that 8th mystery movie? Or maybe you don't think some of the movies that we listed will actually be in those release dates. Let us know your thoughts. Jump down to the comment section below and leave your opinions there. All right, guys.